Good afternoon. This is George Kriza, Managing Director of Challenging Decisions. Today we have an interesting conversation planned with Kathy Motlag, who's the CEO of thinkVirtues. Kathy, could you tell us a little bit about what thinkVirtues is?
Of course, George, thank you so much for having me. thinkVirtues specializes in maximizing human potential from school age to boardrooms. We provide solutions for leaders and organizations, companies, and families. And everything is grounded with virtues, authenticity being the main one that we focus on, and everything that we work on really springs from that. And we go on strengthening and empowering and bringing out the best in everyone.
Excellent. That's good to hear. And when we think about the context of the time we're living in right here, right now, what are some of the most important things that you see relative to leadership during a time of pandemics?
I think the most important thing that leaders should focus on is learning more about getting curious about their emotions and how to manage them. Fear is very real for a lot of people, and it's kind of a debilitating emotion for most of us when we're fearful and don't know how to get out of that debilitating state. So for leaders to learn how to self-regulate themselves and not be reactive, be more proactive about the situation, and passing that on to the people that they lead is a powerful thing these days.
Got it. And when we put an organizational context around the Think Virtues concepts, uh, how can centering our minds on virtues improve organizational dynamics?
It allows us to lead with a sense of purpose and also passion, because authenticity being a virtue allows us to tap into who we really are. And when we find out who we are, our why or purpose in our existence occurs to us. And that's a very powerful way to lead from.
Interesting. Interesting. So I think you've already used the word authenticity as part of this context. And so we hear that as a buzzword. Uh, People want to be authentic. Why is that important?
Because a lot of people confuse authenticity with their sense of identity and ego, and our authenticity is much deeper and much at a much more elevated space. It's our higher self. It's who we strive to be, and it's really not grounded in our identity. It's grounded in our higher sense of purpose. So if you're a goal driven person and your goal is to accomplish X, Y, and Z, if you're not grounded in your authenticity and who you are and what you aspire to be, then your goals become, not as aspirational as they could be, and they don't inspire others. And as a leader, we all need to be, productive and achievement oriented, but we also need to inspire those who work for us. And being authentic allows us to do that. And when you lead from an authentic space, you lead with true care and compassion toward your employees, and that resonates with most people. They're more open and trusting, and all of those things, all of those virtues are necessary ingredients for a thriving organization.
So we were talking about fear earlier. Is authenticity related to self-esteem in some way?
Absolutely. It has to do with our idea of self, our self concept. So when you're authentic, you have this unshakable confidence about you. And, you're not offended easily. You're not, because you have your goal and your sights on a much higher perspective.
Interesting. So if I'm a leader, then how will that affect both the way I lead and the way others react to my leadership?
Well, when you're authentic, people receive it better. People are able to recognize that authenticity, and you connect with them much better. So you're able to be more effective. Leaders are leaders because people follow them, and people don't follow people who don't care about them. So when you lead from a place of authenticity, your aura, your energy changes to your energy such that brings people in, and people understand that, have an understanding that, you know what, this person George really cares about me. And if you are inauthentic, then the reverse is true. And so when people don't, when people don't think that you care about them, you can't really connect or lead them in a more effective way.
Do you think in your way of looking at things, if a person has negative emotions, and I don't mean inward negative emotions, let's say they're angry. Let's say I'm a CEO and things are falling apart, or someone dropped the ball in a big way, and I have these negative emotions, and they're going to come out in a lot of cases. Is that still authentic?
Very good question, because what we're human, we get angry, we get upset. Uh, and what that's the self-regulation component of authenticity, that when you go through a program where certain skills are instilled in you, where you have the ability to self-regulate before approaching another person. So when it's okay to be angry or show frustration, but not be reactive to that person. So have an authentic conversation. So George, you did something that upset me. So you may want to give feedback in a way that's calm, that's empathetic, and that's true to the situation, not true to your emotions. You want to handle that on your own, and manage and self-regulate, and kind of calm down before you approach that person. And when you do so and give feedback to them, you're doing it in an empathetic way, in a way that they can hear it. Because if you're coming out yelling and screaming, no one really receives that well. You just seem like you're out of control. But if you're calm, you express that this situation made me upset, and this is the reason why, and this is what I would like to see moving forward. Does that
I
make sense?
It does. I certainly see in a corporate kind of environment where, a total loss of control isn't productive. But I'm going to tell you a little story about when I was in high school, which probably is a little different from the way you're coming at this. Uh, I went to Morton East High School, and if we were known for anything, it was having losing football teams. I was on the football team all 4 years. I think we won 3 games in 4 years, which is not good. Well, my sophomore year, we got to the fifth game of the season. I still remember so clearly. It was at Highland Park High School, and we were losing the game at halftime. Well, the coach just blew his stack in the locker room at us, and he got so mad he took his clipboard and he whammed it on the ground. And there were a few other choice words that were used. And would you believe we won the game and the next 2 games since he did that? And I think maybe we were completely scared and intimidated, but it did get us over the hump, if you will, from not tolerating losing. So that was maybe a contra to your thought process, but in this particular case, it was effective.
Well, that's a cute story, and I think that those kinds of tactics may work for a game, and temporarily, but long term, it's not a winning strategy. And also is modeling bad behavior, or negative behavior, I should say, to a bunch of impressionable teenagers. So yeah, so I think that, not that I'm sure what he did was very true to his feelings at the time, and we all do things like that. But I don't want to condone that kind of behavior from a coach, where these impressionable teenagers are watching, and We don't want to have that type of behavior replicated, right?
Yeah, understood. Uh, so when we think then about ending up still with success or being victorious in the workplace, then give us a little bit more about how we can be authentic and still win. Because we don't want to be authentic and not achieve our goals.
Of course, I think that that's accomplishing and achieving our goals are the foundation of that is our authenticity. So I think that if a leader takes the time, so many times, so often I see leaders search for answers outside of themselves. And I think that as a culture, we have been conditioned to seek for answers outside of ourselves. But if you, as a leader of an organization or a team, take the time, not just you, maybe even other team members, to go through the inner work, go inside and truly take a good look at and discover and uncover who you really are, what your purpose is, what turns you on, what are your genius factors, what are you really good at, what are your talents, uh, and connecting on that on a both cognitive and emotional level, is incredibly empowering, not just for the leader but everyone around, because then exactly what your strengths and weaknesses are. And we all have both strengths and weaknesses, and we can capitalize on our strengths and we can work on our weaknesses. But unless we go within to discover and ask those very, very important, visceral questions and go on this journey of authenticity, then a lot of those things are a mystery to us and everybody we work with. And so it stagnates, it slows our growth. So really taking the journey to our authentic self really propels our success to a whole new level very quickly.
Yeah, and it would seem to me too, like giving the example that I brought out back in high school, uh, when we behave that way as a leader, it may not be their failure out there on the team. It may be our failure as a leader. So maybe some introspection would be appropriate and ask ourselves the question, did we put all the building blocks in place in order for success to be the final outcome, on time and within budget? So, I think your points are well taken. Now, also, we have one other topic on our uh, punch list here for this discussion, which is empathy. So, how does empathy connect to authenticity?
Empathy is a way of expressing and understanding and really unifying us together on a very special human level. Uh, Empathy is the first ladder of design, for example, because we have to understand and empathize with our end user. What is this application being used for, what is this tool being used for, what is this design being used for, and then it's that through that beautiful unfolding of our empathic being, our practice of empathy, this very visceral virtue that we all have hardwired in us, is a birthplace of so many wonderful things like effective communication, understanding what employees are going through. If right now during the pandemic, employees are wounded, and for leaders to empathize with that in a effective way, in a way that they can just sit down with them and say, "How are you doing? How is this working from home and your children online e-learning, if that's the situation? How are you doing that your mom is in the hospital and you can't go visit her?" There's so many people are struggling in so many different ways, and for leaders to connect with the people they lead on a unified understanding, patiently, um, empathetically, is very important. It shows that they truly care, and they can take then become compassionate and take effective action that really suits the person versus judging them. And if I would do it differently if I were in their shoes, and criticizing, that's not, not well placed. So empathy allows us to connect with one another in a deep, unified way without judgment, without criticism, and really understanding that if we were perhaps born to the same parents, had the same educational background, grew up in the same neighborhoods, perhaps we would have made the same choices, or we would be in the same circumstance and not have the audacity to think that we're better than that person. So we really it connects us on a human to human level in a very special way, and it serves a lot of leaders well to really hone in on that skill and improve it.
Kathy,
Because empathy, just like everything else, is a skill. It can be taught, it can be inculcated, it can be cultivated in any culture, in any situation.
Kathy, this discussion has really only scratched the surface of the discussion about virtues and authenticity and empathy. You made some really great comments. Now, if someone has an organization that they'd like to introduce thinkVirtues to that organization, how would they go about contacting you to explore what that means and what programs you offer?
Thank you, George. This has been a great conversation. I appreciate your kind words. The best way is to contact us through email, info@thinkvirtues.com. We also have a website, but the best way to contact us is through info@thinkvirtues.com, because most of our work is customized. And so that's the best way to start a dialogue.
Excellent. Well, perhaps somebody will reach out to you as a result of this conversation. And just a brief thought about talking to George Kriza. If someone wants to engage challenging decisions for CEO type consulting, you'd reach out to me at 312-320-7760 or diamond1@challengingdecisions.com. That's DIAMOND and the number 1 at challengingdecisions.com. All right, well, we'll bring this conversation to a close and have a great day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, George.